The history of Harlow Cricket Club. Can we put a date to when Harlow Cricket Club was born?
We can't put when it was born, but what we have got records of them actually playing a match in 1774. The Essex Chronicle clearly states that we were invited to play over at Morden, which is the other side of Chelmsford. How on earth they got there in 1774, I have no idea. But that's the oldest reference to Harlow Cricket Club. So we have certainly got history that coincides with probably Hambledon, which is the most famous cradle of cricket in Hampshire, and even older than the MCC.
And so do you have any idea from that point where they were playing and who was involved?
Well, that's always been difficult to find out. Certainly when the newspapers were being published around about 1861, that's the Harlow Observer, we were able to get regular reports of cricket matches, and there was various sites in and around Harlow, which is now the Old Town, sort of places like the Oxleys, which is now a housing estate, and Somebody Meadow, which is a housing estate on the other side of Harlow now. So no one really knows. Certainly they started playing at Marigolds, which is our home today, from around about 1880.
And so is there a feeling, I mentioned the 1774 date, is there a feeling when they actually were playing regular cricket, weekly or monthly, etc.?
No one can really tell, but certainly it was an organised game. Cricket was organised anyway as a competitive sport, pastime, generally weekends. In fact, on the south coast, if you go through Kent, Surrey, Sussex, it was big money spending. Big landed gentry used to employ people to work in their grounds who were accomplished cricketers. So a lot of money was passed in hands. So yeah, cricket is organised. Probably friendly matches, maybe wagers, as going back basically to the middle of the 18th century, without doubt, probably around here as well.
How big a club do you think it was in the 18th, I mean going into the 19th century?
Anyone's guess. Generally would have been made up of people who lived locally. They wouldn't have travelled too far to play cricket because it was horse and cart in those days. So everyone who lived here in the community, which probably had about 3,000 people at that time, because Harlow was a route centre on the Cambridge coach coming right through this front door, in fact. So they would have been working on the land, they were working in service, they would be doing almost anything. There might be, we didn't have shopping centres, people would work in shops in those days, but most of the employment, I think, was probably through working on the land.
And so taking us into the 20th century, tell us a little bit about because I know it's 100 years and then we got the 17 that we have, any flavour of the people that were playing in the club and the type of players?
Yeah, if we're moving on to say around about 1900, you had a cross mix of landed gentry. We had the Swire family involved. Now Swires are famous at Cathay Pacific. They were actually involved in the club from presidential downwards and playing, and had a connection with the club right up to the 1970s. We had the Hoare family, which is still the oldest independent family-run bank in Fleet Street, still running today. They were also very involved with us. Lieutenant Colonel Goslin, who was also related to all sorts of different people, he was a World War I hero. He was heavily involved as a player, a president, and a general benefactor. So we had a complete cross mix. Then also, because the football club also, the same sort of people who played cricket in the summer, football in the winter. It wouldn't be unusual, probably the secretary of the cricket club in 1920 was also the secretary of the football club. And a lot of cross-fertilisation, if that's the word to use.
That's interesting you say that, because that, actually taking a slight tangent, there were people like Dennis Compton, and I remember there was a Jim Coombs, I think it was Worcestershire wicketkeeper.
Goalkeeper, yeah,
yeah,
that's right.
You know, there was that crossover, wasn't there? That was good and healthy, you know.
Well, football stopped around about the beginning of end of April with the FA Cup, and cricket started, and football started again at the end of August. So it was 3 months downtime from to play soccer or cricket, depends which part of the year we're in. Yeah, it's sad, it doesn't happen anymore. Arthur Milton, he played cricket and soccer at the same time as an international. Ended up as being a postman.
The families you just mentioned, Swire and Hoare, are there still connections with the club?
Not anymore. The last connection probably was around about 1950s with a famous family called Todd Hunter. Brigadier Todd Hunter was our president in the early 50s, and he married into the Swire family. But no, not since then. It's down to people like me now.
So you bring yourself into the club. When did you first get involved in the club?
1965. I found out it was cricket. I was moved up to Harlow from Brighton. My father was relocated with Gilbey's, and I turned up in September '64, wanted to play cricket, heard there was a cricket club down here. I think my father met somebody at work, and they told us there was a well-organised cricket club, and down I came, and a mate of mine called Mickey Stevens, and we joined the club there and then.
So what are your memories of those early days?
It was fabulous. The old cricket pavilion is, you can't perceive what it was like. It was a mission hut. They apparently bought it off the Ministry of Disposals after the war in 1952 and got hold of this old mission hut from Willingale Airfield and relocated it up to Marigolds. And it became our new home in 1952. And that survived up until last summer.
So has there been a high in those years? We're sweeping across the years. Would you say there's a high point for the club or a low point? Have you had highs and lows?
Now the club's just jogged along. Certainly since I've been a member, we had 2 teams on a Saturday, 1 team on a Sunday, and a Colts 11, which had just started, which I was involved with. And that was, yeah, there wasn't a lot of support for Colts cricket. There was a bunch of us, about 15. All knew each other. We played football as well and cricket together. And there was a guy called Ricky Barrett, who was a very enthusiastic guy for both football and cricket, and he formulated his Colts team, which lasted for about 3 years. Out of it, probably there was 3 or 4 first team players developed, but some very, very good cricketers. But he encouraged us. The club didn't really support us as much as they ought to have done. Not until probably the 1980s. Where people like Mike Ferry and Derek Hills and Bob Balcombe really got involved with the kids. But they had youngsters who were playing cricket. So they developed a Colts development project, which has just exploded and it's still going well today. I was down there last night, Thursday evening. There must have been 50 or 60 youngsters from 5 to 9-year-olds running around, chasing balls, throwing them, kicking them, catching them.
So if anybody goes down to the club, and whether it's the groundsman tending to the club or the clubhouse and noted scoreboards or the cult, it must be, for one of you or a lot of you, all of you, it must be a full-time job.
It is for Cliff Clark, our groundsman. He's basically there 5 days a week. He gets paid a pittance, but he enjoys it. It's his life. He's there all the time. Gives him an opportunity to moan and groan about everything. But he's terrific. He's been doing it for over 30 years now. Goodness knows what will happen if he ever thinks of retiring. And
I mentioned the clubhouse, so that's a really big step, isn't that? So encouraging.
That's massive for us, big responsibility. Sheila Clow, who's been our sort of steward on a part-time basis for years, is now taking it on, and basically she's full-time employment. We're using it all the time, daytimes as well as weekends for cricket.
But you must be a competitor. I mean, this is a sport, isn't it? So you have what would you say is the standard of your teams here in 2017?
Far better than what it was probably 5 decades ago, without a doubt. We've had some wonderful cricketers play for the club in each decade, but now we're playing league cricket. We're in Division 1 of the Shepherd Neame. There's only one division higher, which is Premier. Whether we can afford to be in that's another story. But we have some very good, talented cricketers playing for us. So because we now have 5 teams on a Saturday, running right down to the 5th 11, which has sort of lads 14, 15, 16-year-olds and a few dads chipping in, making a comeback after 3 or 4 decades of retirement. It's quite good fun. So yeah, it's competitive. Being league cricket, it is competitive. The downside, Sunday cricket has almost vanished now. There's so much commitment needed to play regular cricket on a Saturday, and the hours demanding people to be away from home, that we've lost the old-fashioned idea of playing cricket on Saturday and Sunday, because it would just be the afternoons. Now to hold a Saturday on. Just
take us back for a second. So you mentioned, even in your time, who have been the players you said that he was good?
Peter Prodger, Mike Davey, Lou Whitby, Freddie Silcock was a fantastic player. I only saw him at the end of his career. He was part of about a dynasty of Silcocks that even played for England, all England 11. In the 1880s, they used to have these travelling professional teams, that used to travel, be called the All England Club, and they were basically paid professionals, mercenaries, travelling around the countryside, playing challenge matches like in Bishop Stortford, All England 11 versus the 24 of Bishop Stortford. And what the Silcock generation, or the so-called descendants, were playing for England. So we've got this wonderful pedigree. So we're pretty close to international cricketers.
I'm going to again take you slightly off subject though, but do you? I imagine you're a man who loves his Test cricket.
Yeah.
Do you worry for the future of Test cricket?
Yeah, I do. T20 is a necessary evil. We need T20. It attracts people to cricket and it attracts revenue. Revenue then pays for county cricket, and county cricket pays for Test cricket. It's got. If you're going to keep Test cricket, you need T20 to generate revenue. I'm not particularly fond of pyjamas, but I do actually enjoy the excitement. But Test cricket is what I enjoy most. It's pure.
Yeah. And so, as we said, 2017 with the club, you think it's got a good future?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. The club has continued to grow. I think we've probably reached a few crossroads. I think the new facility is also going to give us a few problems. It's inevitable. We've had a few little teething problems about how we use it, how we treat it. It worries me that we're going to have certain decisions to make as to which way the club's going to go in the future. And unfortunately, cricket is showing signs of what non-league football is, paying professionals to turn up for your club. Well, it's a nice idea to see a good quality professional cricketer appearing, but what's the long-term benefit? Certainly not financial.
I wondered about that because you mentioned about how could we afford to get promoted, because you do get, you mentioned non-league football, you can be at the level Harlow are at,
Yeah.
And players, you can get teams where players have been paying £10, and players being paid, I've heard, silly money is the only term we can carefully use.
I think it's the right word to use, yes, silly. We have two chaps play for us that we pay money for, and they're wonderful cricketers. They're a joy to watch, and they're very exciting. And they maintain a certain standard of the club at a certain league. But as an argument is, are you punching above your weight? There was a wonderful statement made by the president of another cricket club I know well, and he said the professional should be your icing on the cake. When it becomes the contents of the cake, you've got a problem. And I think he's absolutely right. We've got to make sure if we do want to invest in professional cricketers to play for us, we need to have them 24/7. We don't to turn up on a Saturday at 12 and clear off at 8 and not be seen again for 6 days. To me, it's not a good return on free investment. I like the idea of bringing a young, talented youngster from perhaps Australia or New Zealand who's suitably qualified, and he's with us 24/7 from April through to September. Plays with the first team, does the coaching, helps behind the bar, helps Cliff on the ground. To me, that's a true retained professional.
Alan Howick, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.